Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the massive, kind of invisible global system that decides where pretty much everything you own, from your phone to your t-shirt, actually gets made. It's a journey that, trust me, reveals a whole lot about our modern world. So let's start with something you probably have in your hand right now, your smartphone. Go ahead, look at the back. It might say assembled in China, right? But that's just the very last step in an incredible global journey. And answering where it was really made, well, that question tells the entire story of our world economy. To really understand how we got here, we've got to jump in a time machine and go back to the mid-20th century. Because, believe it or not, the way we used to make things was way, way simpler. Back then, the system was called Fordism, and yep, it's named after Henry Ford. The idea was simple but incredibly powerful. You build one gigantic factory, you hire thousands of workers, and you crank out thousands of identical products. For decades, this was the engine that powered the economies of industrialized or core countries. Okay, so if that system was so powerful and created so much wealth, why did it all change? What in the world happened to all those mega factories? Let's get into the big turning point that completely reshaped, well, everything. So starting around the 1970s, that old model started to crack. Workers in those core countries demanded better pay, and strong labor unions were there to fight for them. For the big corporations, this meant costs were going up and up. Making stuff at home just wasn't as profitable anymore, and that kicked off a massive worldwide hunt for cheaper places to make things. And the consequence of that global search was something called deindustrialization. As companies packed up and moved their factories somewhere else, they left behind entire regions, especially in places like the US, filled with abandoned, literally rusting out factories. And that's exactly how the Rust Belt got its name. So what took the place of that old megafactory? A whole new system, one that's way more flexible, high-tech, and stretches all across the globe. Let's take a look at how this completely different model is put together. Now, what's so fascinating here is how perfectly this captures that shift. We went from making everything in one spot to this flexible, specialized production that's spread out all over the world. The main goal wasn't just about making a ton of stuff anymore. It became a global hunt for the absolute lowest production cost by outsourcing different pieces of the puzzle. This new way of doing things, sometimes called post-Fordism, created what we now call the International Division of Labor. And put simply, it just means different countries now specialize in different parts of the production process. So the design might happen in one country, the little components are made in a bunch of others, and the final thing is put together somewhere else entirely. To really wrap your head around this, let's go back to our smartphone and actually trace its incredible journey. This is the global assembly line in action, folks. So step one doesn't even happen in a factory. It starts in a place like Silicon Valley. We call this a growth pole. It's a hub of innovation where all the design, the engineering, and the big ideas happen. It's a perfect example of agglomeration, where all these brainy companies in the same industry cluster together to share talent and ideas. Okay, next, the blueprints get sent out. The really complex high-tech parts, we're talking the processor, the camera, the screen, are often made in countries like South Korea and Taiwan. These places have developed these just incredible, super specialized manufacturing skills. Then all those high-tech parts get boxed up and shipped to yet another country, often China, for the final assembly. This is outsourcing 101. The labor-intensive job of just putting everything together is moved to regions with much lower labor costs. That's a huge part of what keeps the final price of the phone down. And here's the final step before that product actually gets to you. The finished phones are shipped in massive containers to special tax-free zones. They can be stored there and then sent out to different countries without getting hit with big customs fees, which again helps keep the final price nice and low for us. So what makes this unbelievably complex global dance even possible? Well, it's not chaos, I'll tell you that. It's a highly organized system that's built on a whole set of special rules and logistical wizardry. See, to attract all this international business, countries will create these special zones that have different laws than the rest of the country. And as you can see, each type of zone has a really specific job, whether it's giving tax breaks to a new factory, focusing only on goods that are going to be exported, or acting as one of those tax-free pit stops for distribution. Now, here's a really crucial piece of the puzzle. These zones, especially the export processing zones, often work under a different set of rules. A huge incentive for big companies is that less strict labor laws can let them sidestep the unions and minimum wage requirements they'd have to deal with back home. And it's not just the locations that have changed, it's the logistics too. Instead of making millions of things and letting them sit in a warehouse, a lot of companies now use what's called just-in-time delivery. Basically, they only make something after you order it. Now, this saves them an absolute fortune on storage costs, but it's probably why you have to wait a few weeks for that new couch to actually get built after you click buy. At the end of the day, this whole global restructuring isn't just some abstract thing economists talk about. It has a very real, direct impact on the jobs available where you live and the price you pay for almost everything you buy. You see, when a factory moves into a new area, it creates something called the multiplier effect. It's not just about the jobs on the assembly line. That factory needs electricians, janitors, truck drivers, and all those new workers, they need places to buy groceries, restaurants to eat at, and schools for their kids. So one factory can actually spark an entire local economy. This massive global shift in where the jobs are has led to some of the largest internal migrations in all of human history. Think about it. Millions upon millions of people in a place like China have moved from rural villages to these huge, booming urban manufacturing centers, all to find work. So let's bring it all home. This system is the reason we have affordable electronics and clothes. It's also why, in core countries, we've seen a major shift away from factory jobs and towards service and tech jobs. It means all of our economies are deeply connected now, and it explains how a Rust Belt and a growth bowl can exist in the very same world at the very same time. And that really leaves us with a final big thought. This incredibly efficient system has given us some clear benefits, right? Lower prices, amazing new products. But it also forces us to ask some really important questions about labor conditions, the impact on our environment, and what happens to all of these communities, both the old ones and the new ones, when the next big shift eventually comes along.